Okay, let's get started today. My name is Chris Beitler. I'm the chair of the West Haymarket Joint Public Agency, and I'm joined today, as usual, by Carl Eskridge from our council and Tim Clare from the Board of Regents, and together we form the governance body of this organization. We operate in accordance with the open meetings law. They're posted in the back of the room for those who may be interested in taking a look at those. We allow, under those rules, public comment on the different items on the agenda. There are time limitations associated with that comment. We ask that a total of 5 minutes to speak be observed. And we ask that those testifying identify themselves for the official record. With that, we'll start with agenda item number 3, which is approval of the minutes for the JPA meeting held November 15th, 2018. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes as presented?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Clare?
Yes.
Beitler?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
They are approved. Agenda item number 4 is approval of the JPA minutes for the special meeting that was held December 18th, 2018. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. Call the roll.
Clare?
Yes.
Beitler?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
They are approved. Agenda item number 5, resolution 18-31, resolution to approve a certain addendum to a construction consultant agreement to be presented by Chris. Chris Connolly, you're presenting this? Okay.
Yes. Chris Connolly, Chief Assistant City Attorney. JPA has been doing business with PC Sports for many years. And a couple of years ago, there was a new agreement that was drafted and was set up such that we could do addendums to that contract for each individual contract year going forward. And so the addendum that we have for you today is the next step in that process. There is one more addendum that we can do before we have to redo the contract in its entirety. So the scope of the work really remains the same. The only thing that's really changing here is I believe there's some changes in the billing rates, and the total dollar amount caps out at $69,000 for the year. And Adam Hobel-Heinrich is here if there are any questions, and otherwise I'll try to answer whatever questions I can.
Are there questions, Chris?
No, and I assume we had budgeted for these types of expenditures in the past. The PC Sports has had a great relationship with this organization for a long period of time and have provided just invaluable service. And so I'm prepared to continue this agreement and appreciate their assistance in the ongoing efforts in making this project a success.
Carl? All right. Don't be complimenting them too heartily. Is there public testimony?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government. How do you do this when might be a new well, there will be a new administration before December the 31st of 2019.
Well, the city will have a new administration, and the membership of the board will change, but the board is entitled to execute an agreement with someone even pending that kind of a change. And so when the contract comes up next year, the board is free to do what it wants with the next addendum. This is only a 1-year extension.
So they can't do anything till December of 2019?
When you say they can't do anything, I'm not...
A new board.
Right. Well, there won't be a new board until next summer at the earliest anyway, so...
When is that?
Well, it won't be till after the election.
Of this May?
Correct.
Coming May.
Correct.
Okay. But the contract runs through December,
Correct.
so it cannot be changed then?
Well, a new board can take whatever action it wants after it's in place. If they want to review this after they come on board, I guess they can do that, but we see no reason why this agreement should be reviewed or modified before the end of the next calendar year.
Well, speaking for watchdogs, we don't agree with that. We think that a new administration may have totally different ideas. And we would not feel comfortable about it, the way it's set up.
Okay. Anything else, Jane? Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Is there further public comment on agenda item number 5? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve agenda item number 5?
So move. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. Agenda item number 6, resolution 18-32, relating to approval of an agreement involving the Joint Public Agency and South Canopy LLC for the sale of certain property. And Chris, you're describing this to us also, I believe.
That's correct, Your Honor. Your Honor.
I accept.
Mr. Mayor.
On now.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
We're worried about going overboard here. Anyway, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I would like to take both contracts up at the same time since they're really kind of tied together. So this agenda item plus the next agenda item.
All right. So agenda items 6 and 7, Chris is going to describe together, and since they do relate to the same overall transaction, let's do that. And Jane, for you and anybody else who's interested in commenting, we'll open the public comment to 6 and 7 at the same time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. As you can see by the picture we have on the screen, we're going to be talking about items that really, 2 items on the agenda today that are impactful to the build-out of the original West Haymarket vision. And of course, we're starting with our centerpiece being the arena, but we're talking about development further south of what the arena is. The area is really bookended by the arena on the north and a significant JPA-owned parcel on the south, except for what's known as the Jacobson property. And I'll get into the diagram here in a little bit. But this Jacobson property is really the key to unlocking the development plans for the JPA property south of N Street. The Jacobson property provides the opportunity for the kind of amenities the JPA has been looking for on the south side, and it will provide space for possible commercial development. By acquiring this property for development of both a plaza and commercial space, the doorway to the West Park plans that were announced last week can be realized. So we'll take a look a little bit on here. We've got Pinnacle Bank Arena on this side, and that's to the north, the way this is laid out. We've got Canopy Street here, and we're going to talk about development of Block 2, and that's one of the agreements that's up today. And then we come down here, and this is the Jacobson building, or the Jacobson property. And this is the piece that we're going to purchase from South Canopy LLC. And so that's going to be the focus of the discussion here for the next few minutes. All right, so we'll get into the nuts and bolts here of each transaction. On the Jacobson property, the purchase price is $2,064,000. The square footage for that particular piece of property is 20,592 square feet. And so the purchase price per square foot works out mathematically to $100.23 per square foot. The appraised value that we got back was $1.8 million. Interestingly, in the appraisal, under the cost approach, it showed the land value, just the land value, was $30 a square foot, which shows that the improvements that are on that property, which is a cold storage facility that still has most of the equipment in it, is really the bulk of the value that comes from the purchase of this property. And so the idea is to have, once this is purchased, that building will be demolished as part of the future planning for this area. And the site will provide space for a plaza on the north end of the property, which would be just off of N Street. We don't have specific drawings or diagrams that show exactly where the plaza would be, but essentially what we're looking at is this north corner general area would have a number of square feet for a plaza, and then there would still be space on the south end of the property down to where the property line here is, just on the south edge of the building, where there could be space for commercial development or at least access to the property off to the west, which this is going to be largely park property, but there could be also commercial development in there as well. So some part of the purchase price that we're spending money on for this could be recovered from sale of the property on the south end there in order to provide access for other commercial properties that may be down there. There are no restrictions on this. This is pretty much just a straight up purchase, JPA buying this land. Now we'll go to Block 2. Block 2 is more in the middle of the West Haymarket area. Everyone, I'm sure, has seen it as the graveled area just north of the Huddle building. And the specifics on this transaction are that the sale price, we're selling this to South Canopy LLC, which is the seller on the Jacobson property. The sale price is $1,555,392. We're looking at 32,404 square feet, and the price works out to $48 a square foot. The appraised value for Block 2 is $1,950,000, and that works out to $60 per square foot. The adjusted, in looking at the comparables in the appraisal, the adjusted mean value of the comparables was $56.55, and so the final value was actually adjusted upward in the appraisal. But with the considerations that we had going into this property that I'm going to discuss here in just a minute, there needed to be some negotiation on the JPA's part in order to make this work for everybody. There are no improvements on this property. It's nothing to be demolished. The payments will be made in one-third amounts at different times. So there'll be one-third paid at closing, one-third paid by the first Monday of January of 2020, and the balance would then be due on the first Monday of January of 2021. So we'll have 3 consecutive years where a third or thereabouts will be paid each time. The JPA will take back a deed of trust on Block 2 to secure the payments that still need to be made. The JPA will also agree to provide $187,943 for streetscape improvements surrounding this property. And just for comparison with the Olson project that was just recently developed, the JPA is putting in $354,000 worth of improvements there. So we have some savings here on property that is roughly the same size in terms of streetscape linear feet, probably, in terms of what would need to be developed. In addition, the JPA will be given a right of reversion on this property. And a right of reversion means that if certain conditions aren't met or not timely met, that the JPA can literally take back ownership of the property from South Canopy LLC. And if that were to be the case, then the JPA would give back the money that was spent by South Canopy on the purchase, but we would get the property back and we would be free to sell it then to any other party that was interested or however the board thought was appropriate. Okay, so what are the conditions that must be met by South Canopy as part of this project? They must submit a building permit by November 1 of 2021 that includes all the following: a building that is not less than 6 stories tall, a minimum of 100,000 square feet, minimum development and construction cost of $15 million, a courtyard that is accessible to the public on the south side of the building that is not less than 70% of the courtyard at the Huddle building, which is directly south. And the first floor must contain active uses such as restaurant, retail, hospitality, etc. on the Canopy Street side of the property. Last, there must be substantial completion of the footings and foundation by May 31st, 2022. The JPA will then have until July 1st of 2022 to exercise this reversion if one or more of these conditions are not met. And again, we would get title of the property and we would return the money to South Canopy. Okay, so next photo here. And these are drawings from last week's special meeting / press conference, and so they should look familiar. JPA investment in the arena area on the north has spurred development down towards the south, and so that's how we've been working down. There's the arena here, here's Block 2, and here's the Jacobson property, and then the West Park area is back in here. So as you can see, we're moving south. We still have Block 4 that's available, and trying to work through that as well. But acquiring the Jacobson property expands the lands that are available for development of both amenities and private projects, as can be seen in this picture. And, well, we'll move to a couple photos of what the land looks like currently. This is one view of where the Jacobson property is at. This is N Street that we're looking at, and this is the Jacobson property. And then just to the west of it is the open area that we've referred to as Block 5. Another view of that. This is looking more to the south across N Street. Here's N Street. This is the Block 5 area, and then here's the Jacobson building. And so you can see that with 7th Street just off to the side over here. And so this building, this Jacobson building, is really kind of a key to opening up all the frontage along N Street for this property. And so that's why it's so important.
Because a curb cut isn't feasible along N Street as it veers to the north, right?
Yeah, if you have traffic coming down from the north, from along Arena Drive and then turning onto N Street, I don't think LTU now would be thrilled about putting in a right turn lane there. Plus, the majority of the traffic, I think, is going to be coming in from the east. And so you'd have people trying to turn to the south to get onto that property, and so it does not create a good situation. So if we have access around behind where the Jacobson building is at, I think it provides a better way of moving traffic in and out of this entire West Park area. So, okay, so we have 2 more pictures. This again shows where each of the properties are located. Now this one starts to show where the West Park area is, and there's some conceptual drawings about that I'll show you here in just a second. But again, you can see on here how important the Jacobson property is to opening up the West Park area. If access can be figured out on this east side of the property, then traffic can continue to flow smoothly on N Street over onto Arena Drive, but people will still be able to have full access here. And last, some conceptual ideas only, these are not finished drawings by any means, are sort of overlaid on top here. This is just sort of a building to kind of show what it would look like. There's the Huddle building, so to kind of give you an idea of where it's located. And then down here, again, this is the West Park area, and these are ideas of what the plaza might look like. And this white area in here is where commercial development could take place or access, or both. It just depends on how that gets planned out. There are efforts now by the city to get some master planning done for this area, and so we hope to get some results here in the near future to help better strategize as to how to develop that area. So those are that's the nuts and bolts of the contracts, and we're looking to do closing on both of these in early January. I think the parties are open, if necessary, to adjusting the closing schedule to accommodate this board, if necessary. And with that, if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Questions?
Carl?
I think I know the answer to it, but that's what you're supposed to do, right? So the equipment, you talked about the value of the Jacobson property and that a lot of that is the building and the equipment. The equipment sale itself, does that go, is that the property of the seller?
No, the equipment that's in there now, and we're talking about fixtures, really. We're not talking about movable equipment.
Okay.
These are large HVAC units and chillers and those kinds of things. I guess I don't know what all is in there. And I don't know if anyone else can answer that question that's here. But the appraiser did make an effort through our office to get a better handle on what was staying and what was going. We were able to answer those questions in talking with South Canopy. And so it was part of his job as an appraiser to include the value of that equipment, that remaining equipment, in the appraisal. Now, when we go to demolish the building, we usually allow the demolition contractor to salvage whatever they can get out of it.
Sure.
That helps reduce the price on demolition. Mm-hmm. And what are we going to get out of it? We don't know at this point. But that's every little bit helps.
Sure. Okay. All right. And just one other comment on the park. Let's start talking about it, not using the word, and I know others have used this, West Park, because there's a whole lot of Lincoln that's west of this park. Okay, so
duly noted.
South Haymarket Park or something, but not West Park. That's people that live west of there might take offense at that. Okay. Okay. All right.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, first I want to thank I think the parties that are involved in this, the Scotts and the Dunlops and the Clay Smiths and Mark Whiteheads. I mean, again, I want to thank them for their leadership in helping develop this along 2015. It's been a transformational change to Lincoln, and it's one that, from the university's perspective, it's really helped with the retention of young people. From the city's perspective, it's helped with the retention of young people and the recruitment. So I think it's been outstanding, and this is just, I mean, the thing that you'd probably want to say is, wow, we did not expect it to go this fast. You know, we expect to be able to catch our breath, but it's just taken off. And if I look at your map, I see on the map that Block 2 would now be taken care of. Block 3 with the Olson project would now be completely finished. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And now we're into Block 4 where we're dealing with parts of it. Block 5 would be then the I won't call it the West Lincoln Park. But I mean, I think that's outstanding. And so again, the vision, you know, when we get up here, certainly I think, and I think my colleagues think about the vision that those leaders had, and I try to fulfill that, help fulfill that mission that they saw as well. Couple of just questions about the lot 2 or block 2 and then the Jacobson property. I should have looked at this, but I didn't. How high is the Huddle building, and how high is the Hyatt next to it? Because you said not less than 6 stories, and so will it be, is 6 stories as high as the Huddle building is? I don't know.
I believe it's the same, it will be similar in height to the Huddle building. Okay. I don't remember the exact number of stories it has, but it's either 6 or 7.
Okay, so the plans would be that it would be about, you know, be in that same area.
The general idea is to have, I don't want to say it's going to mirror the Huddle building, but they're at least supposed to be consistent with each other. And that's part of the reason for having the courtyard space be roughly the same size as what Huddle already has, so that those two parts at least would mirror each other. So that when you look at these two buildings, you can see the similarities. I don't think there's any expectation that it's going to be something that's wildly different than what Huddle has already built. Is that fair to say? Okay. So that's the direction that this is headed. It's meant to sort of complement the Huddle building that's already there.
Okay. And then the other conditions, I think, are appropriate in the sense that, you know, we've put a lot of energy, as have the private sector developers and the JPA and everybody involved in trying to make this a really outstanding area. And so I like the conditions that you've placed on this, the restrictions and things, so that we can make sure that it all fits. Talk for just a minute on the right of first refusal, and because there was a right of first refusal on this property to begin with, and can you give just a brief synopsis of the status of that for not only us but for the public as it relates to this, because I want to make sure that everybody is on exactly on the same page.
Right. And just so I'm sure, you're not talking about the right of reversion that's in the agreement. You're talking about the arrangement that was previously there.
Yep.
There was an arrangement with WRK to develop the property. That has since expired. However, we continued discussions with them, and so that's how we've arranged, or how we've landed on this agreement.
So this right of first refusal, the right of first refusal that was there has expired, and that is no longer valid or binding. That's
correct.
And then on the appraisals themselves, appraisal first off on the block 2, the appraisal showed a value that of $60 a square foot, and yet there's some, I looked at some of the comps on that appraisal, and some of those comps it's hard to match, but from an appraisal standpoint they have to go and they have to find something to try to match it back to. Can you talk a little bit about the appraisal and your thoughts relative to value?
Yeah, you know, it's difficult for an appraiser to go into the West Haymarket area. The comps that were used for this, none of them were actually in the West Haymarket area. And the closest one, not counting the prior transaction on this, South Canopy bought this property in 2017. The next closest one is just a block away, essentially, which is what we call the 8N property at 8th and N. And that they paid an exorbitant amount of money for that property, and so that tends to skew values to anything close to it, which could include block 2. So the next closest ones were properties that were 5 and 6 blocks away. The appraiser did note some properties that were listed for sale that were in the range of $60, but not sales that had been transacted or concluded. And so, excuse me, given what the appraiser has to work through, I understand why he came up with the numbers that he did. But given the nature of the transactions here, it's hard to say that that's a number that's really applicable to our situation. Again, it's not that he's wrong, but we have other considerations as the JPA as to what we're doing here. It is one of the goals of the JPA is to get this whole area built out. And so in order to do that, you have to make some accommodations. If we're looking for a particular kind of a structure, as we're doing on Block 2, you have to negotiate that. With all the conditions that are placed on here, that's not something you would normally do in a real estate deal. You don't put all those transactions on and say, yeah, we'll sell it to you, but you have to build this exact building. That's what we're doing. Well, if we're going to do that, then we're not going to get top dollar for the real estate. And so we have to negotiate those back. We are providing some assistance on the streetscape, but not as much as we've done on other projects. At the same time, if you look at the history of the way the properties have sold from the JPA, we started out at $15 a square foot. The next one really was the Huddle project, and that was a kind of a convoluted formula, but it was anywhere from $25 a square foot up to $33 a square foot. Then we did the Olson project, which is still not actually formally closed. It's going to be closing here very shortly. That was at $42.20 a square foot, and now this one's at $48 a square foot. So there has been a progression upward in the sale price that the JPA is recognizing out of each of these transactions. But with the additional restrictions that we've put on there, we felt like those were a reasonable accommodation in order to make sure that we got the building that we were looking for and still try and balance that with making sure we get good value for the sale.
And I think that's important to us because we've got a fiduciary duty on this project as well. Switching real quickly to the Jacobson property, I think the key on this is a couple of things. One, it was purchased a couple of years ago by WRK, and in legal terms we call that an arm's length deal, and it was purchased in that a buyer and a seller worked together, got a transaction completed, and the purchase price on that was $2 million, if I'm not mistaken. And so 2 years later, as this is developed out, as you were noting how the per square foot price has gone up as different projects were built out, we see a purchase price today that we are buying it from WRK for $2 million plus some costs that they put into it.
Correct.
So you have to wonder, is that a fair price or not? And you'd have to kind of scratch your head from a business side and say, yeah, I think that sounds fair. The big issue though on this is if we're going to get any commercial development out of that block 5, there is absolutely no way we can do it feasibly without having access in there, and you cannot get access in there off of N Street. It's going to have to come off of 7th Street, which is going to go right through this property.
Correct.
And so any development issues are going to be addressed as a result of this transaction.
Right.
And so one final question about the Jacobson property. I noticed there were some references to hazardous materials, but what are we going to obviously there was some hazardous materials and some cleanup done early on this. What are the cleanup specifications relative to the property there, and what are we expecting to find? How much of a difference or a variance of cleanup efforts are we going to take from what we've already taken on the other parts around there? Yeah,
it's obviously close to the altar site. I don't know if Adam would be able to help with how much carryover there would be. South Canopy will provide to us whatever documentation they have. But I think our expectation is that we're not going to find a lot there. Adam, can you speak to that?
Adam Hobel-Heinrich, Project Control. What I can speak...
Hold on 1 second. What do you want?
I'm just trying to get the picture so we can see their pretty faces.
Oh.
Amy.
Oh. Do you want me to take this off?
Let's take that off.
Yeah.
Okay. Adam Hobel-Heinrich with Project Control PC Sports. What I can say is that up to the property line of the Jacobson property, the JPA has taken care of all environmental issues there. As far as what's underneath the Jacobson property, we'll have to dig into to find out unless there's documents otherwise.
My recollection is there may still be a little bit of money left from the original rehab money at Alter. Do you know if that's accurate?
Our environmental budget is close to the original budget, but it is under right now, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, I just want to make sure that from a due diligence standpoint that we're not buying a liability with respect to environmental concerns, and it will enable us to to have the planned use of the property as we would, as we expect to have with it.
We have not done any soil borings or any of that, and if that's important, then we can arrange that, if that's important to you. But at the moment, we do not have detailed information on what's under the building.
You okay?
I'm done.
Carl?
Fine.
Okay, thank you. Is there public comment?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. So who is South Canopy?
South Canopy LLC is a privately owned company.
Who is it?
It's Will and Robert Scott.
Just the Scotts?
As far as I know, they are the co-managers. I don't know who else is involved.
You're selling and you don't know who's involved? Or you're buying and you don't know who's involved?
We don't know every member of South Canopy LLC. That's true, but we don't need to.
Why not?
If they're able to, we're familiar with the Scotts because they are also WRK. It's a related company.
Is Chief in there?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
I don't get that at all. How do you know these are reliable people?
Well, we think they are reliable. They have done reliable work in the past. But we have protections built in here that if they don't do what they say they're going to do, we will get the property back.
Well, that costs money.
No, not really. The reversion will happen automatically. We'd have to pay them their money back, but we're also going to have a property that's going to be worth more in 3 years than it is right now.
Who's the appraiser?
It was Great Plains Appraisal.
And who owns that?
Wayne Cooper. I think Wayne Cooper does.
Does he own it? I don't know who the owners of. It's a corporation.
Private?
Private.
On retainer?
No, we pay them on a per appraisal basis.
Regularly?
We use them frequently.
But you don't know who owns it, huh?
That's public information. If you wanted to go to the Secretary of State's office, I'm sure you can determine that.
Okay. It's not part of 2015 vision.
I don't know if they are or not. I don't know if they're members of that or not.
Okay. Well, this whole thing is, railroaded by the 2015 vision, and I can't remember if WRK's was a member of that, but apparently people in Lincoln are not totally for this. They voted down the fact that there would be continuing administration. So the university and the new administration need to take into consideration that the public may not be with us with it. With the idea, with all of this ongoing, you said something about the JPA has to develop. I'm not quite sure why they have to develop, except that that is a grand design of the 2015 vision. Why didn't WRK follow through with this building to develop it? Any reason for that given?
For what? I'm sorry, for which building?
The Jacobson building, they bought it and they were going to develop it, but they're not doing that now?
I don't know if they intended to develop it. They purchased it. It may have been an investment on their part.
Okay. So nobody really knows about that then?
No.
Okay. So it's possible that they don't have the money to do it?
If they don't have the money, then we're going to get the land back.
Okay. and the city's willing to take a chance on it. Is that it?
Well, the JPA thinks that this is a good deal, and we think we have the protections in the agreement that are necessary.
The three people here made the decision to do that?
Well,
Before
we're
this-
asking them to approve it, yes.
Okay. But did you talk to them about it before?
Each of the board members has been consulted individually.
Okay. Okay. So we'll see what happens in the future about it. Mr. Clare will be the only continuing person. He may be voted down by the future members. And I guess it's on you and the attorneys that this is okay.
Well, I'm one of the attorneys, so.
Yeah, the city attorney's office. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Jane. Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, before we talk about a motion on this, Tim, did you want to make additional comments on the timing of this in any way, or are you okay with moving forward?
Well, I would propose, obviously I have not spoken to you nor Carl about this, but I would propose, given the complexity, given the fact that we've had this, we've known about this for a relatively short period of time, I would propose that we adopt a methodology similar to how we've operated throughout certainly your tenure and my tenure on this board of wanting, this is a public project, wanting the public to have the opportunity to weigh in, participate in the discussion, make sure that this is what everybody's agreeing to. And so what I propose is giving it a week time period, 1 week or 10 days, whatever the case is, to delay formalizing this until, and give the public another opportunity to, if they've got questions about it, certainly they can come in and contact us and or reach out to us and look into it themselves and make sure that this is one that they understand and are on board with. I think that this is a project that is very exciting, and I'm excited about the future of this. I'm excited about the Block 2 development. I'm excited about the park and the opportunity to have commercial development along with some park space. So it all fits, but I want to make sure also that the public has the opportunity to contact us, and in the interest of transparency, in the interest of full and access to us as the representatives on this board, I would propose delaying a vote on these two items for a period of I think we talked about, or we're looking at some, I got an email from your office, I guess, about some future dates. And so I'd like to delay it for a period of time until early January, and we could put off the closing for a couple of days, because I understand they were wanting to close on the 4th of January.
January 7th.
January 7th. Okay, so I guess it wouldn't be that big of a delay. But anyway, that's what I would propose doing, just because I want to continue to operate the same way we have in the past and not be rushed through these types of transactions. And we give extra time to think about it. Public has the opportunity to look into it, and that's what I'd propose.
Okay.
So January 7th is proposal? Okay. And would that be with just action or with continued public hearing?
Well, I would give the public an opportunity to if they want to talk about it, they can, and we move, but expect action up or down that day.
Okay.
Is that an acceptable legal format to have?
Yes, yes.
Extended
And
public hearing, but with the option of action that same day?
Correct. It would be just like we do with the council. We would just continue it on for a special meeting on January 7th with public hearing. The only difference it'll make for us is it seemed like everybody's window of time was open between 10:30 and 1 o'clock that day. We would probably want to make it a little bit earlier if there's going to be public hearing, just in case people show up. At 2 o'clock in here, we have directors meeting and then city council, so we need to make sure we're done plenty enough ahead of time. So I guess I would suggest, if it's okay with everyone, that we do it, start no later than 11 o'clock.
What time?
11 o'clock
On the 7th?
on the 7th.
Assuming we can arrange that in a motion, which we certainly can, is 11 o'clock on the 7th agreeable to you two gentlemen?
Works for me.
Okay. So, Chris, thank you. I'm going to try to frame this, and you tell me whether this is acceptable to you. So my understanding is that we will do one motion, which will remove agenda items 6 and 7 from today's agenda and add them to the agenda for a special meeting to be held January 7th at 11 a.m. on the two items, 6 and 7, that are currently on today's agenda. What else do I need?
I think you've got everything. Rather than saying you're removing it from this agenda, I would just suggest you say we're tabling it.
Okay.
And so it'll be continued over.
And it would be tabled, would be the motion? They would be tabled, those two items?
Until January 7th at 11 o'clock, with public hearing.
I would make that motion.
So moved?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Anything you wanted to say, Chris?
Nope.
Okay. Call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes,
Eskridge.
Yes.
it is done. Approved. So that brings us to agenda item number 8, the next meeting date.
Next regular.
Next regular meeting.
Next regular meeting date, yes. And Chris, do we want to leave the regular meeting date for that date, or do you want to set it later? I'm not sure what's...
At this point, we don't know if we have agenda items. Frequently, we don't know until a couple weeks ahead of time.
Okay, so if it's agreeable
Next
to you
meeting's
all,
yeah.
just leave it open as to the next regular meeting date. And with that, I think all we need is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Move to adjourn, seconded. Further discussion? Call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes,
Eskridge.
Yes.
we are adjourned.